Time now for the voice of the land on the Big Play Network with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Always Positive Jay.
And we'll just keep the celebrations rolling because it's always good and you feel good. If you got to win on Thursday night, you don't have to play for 10 days. You can relish in it for a long amount of time. There's other fandoms that are only going to get a victory Monday. We've gotten a victory Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, now Sunday with the Guardians, and we'll take that into Monday before we get on track to start really thinking about the Atlanta Falcons next Sunday. That is the Cleveland Browns beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. And since we don't swear on this show, I'm not going to call them what I usually call them, but I hate Pittsburgh. That is one of the clips that we should have cut a long time ago when I just yelled into a microphone. I hate Pittsburgh. Unwarranted, it was unprompted. I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. I just yelled into a microphone. I hate Pittsburgh. And everybody
everyone knows where it came from.
Everybody knows where it comes from. So to see the Browns come back after a collapse to the Jets, especially defensively, get those things worked out. Justin, I got to admit, I was kind of apprehensive going into the game, even though the Steelers are supposed to be down this year. We know that Mike Tomlin has never had a season below 500, and they're always going to be tough. The AFC North is always going to be tough, but I was apprehensive. I was more nervous than felt like I needed to be because I heard that cliche, that term throughout the week. Players had a player-only meeting. The defensive players had a player-only meeting. This is one of those instances where it worked out.
Yeah, I think, in all honesty, I was impressed. I was very impressed with the way the Browns came out. They looked like they put together a win that a great team puts together. And that might not translate to what happened on the scoreboard. I know they let the Steelers kind of linger a little bit, but really we always know that this rivalry is going to be a beatdown, straight up. And I think that the game plan that I thought the Browns should come out with, they did come out with. And they did what they needed to do. And that was, okay, we're going to line up and we're going to run the ball right at Cam Hayward. That's who we need to worry about on their defensive line with TJ Watt being out. And then we're going to get the ball out of Jacoby's hand quickly because we know that their cornerbacks, they're subpar. They're probably in the bottom half of the league with their cornerback play. Obviously, they lost Joe Hayden, who was getting up there in age. So, to me, they took every advantage that they had, and they put it forth in that game. The defensive only meeting, like you said, it's a cliche. Sometimes it spells doom for certain teams, but I think in this instant it was warranted, being as how colossal those collapses were the last 2 weeks. And it was something that was needed to get that back end situated. One thing that I saw in this game, it was poetic because the Steelers could go down and they could have made things interesting with one big play. And you saw the Browns, they were rallying to the ball. You saw them more proactive in, hey, let's go shut this game out. Let's not linger this any longer than it needs to. We need to go shut this game out. So I think the game plan, hats off to Stefanski. I know everyone wants to rip on Joe Woods and Stefanski, but in this instance, you've got to give your hats off to him. It was a hard-fought divisional game that the Browns absolutely needed, and that's what great teams in this league do. Now, I still think they're a good team, not a great team, but they came in and said, hey, we're going to put our foot to their throats, and we're going to close them out. And that's what they did. It was a tough battle, but I enjoyed seeing Njoku get the targets that he received. I enjoyed them getting Amari Cooper in space and kind of building that connection for Jacoby and Amari before Deshaun comes back, because that's what we're really looking at. We're looking at buying time. We're looking at, okay, with the addition of Deshaun Watson, will this make the Browns a great team or still just a good team? And I was talking with Matty Hayes, my teammate at ESPN Cleveland. We did a sound check or an air check, and we were talking about this. And basically everything that I said kind of came to fruition. And we were both standing across from each other and be like, well, on paper, the Browns have this, this, and that. this should all beat the Steelers. Why are we still worried? And it was because that they've been a little bit fraudulent on the defensive side. I mean, they've given up those head scratcher plays. They're still a young team. And you just didn't know. You knew Mike Tomlin was going to get these guys ready to play. Mm-hmm. So it was up to you to come right back out and punch them in the mouth, and that's exactly what they did. I love what the Browns did, even though it wasn't, a 40-7 blowout. These guys just came right in. It just always seemed like, all right, this is the Browns game. Their defense had their offense under control, and it felt as if they controlled every aspect of this game, despite what the scoreboard said.
What makes fans here in Cleveland is so amazing and so awesome, and kind of like a people watching type of like fascination is, they're always going to be, we are always going to be the most optimistic or the most hopeful, and thinking, the Steelers are down, we can blow them out. We'll be like 4-0 or at least 3-1 through the first four. And that was the conversation that I heard all the time. Like the Steelers Thursday night, like it's not as big of a game anymore because they're down. We're going to blow them out. But in the back of everybody's head, like, I'm not saying that that's what they truly think. That's hope coming out because of what we have been through. Everybody knows that those games are going to be tough, and you got to stack as many wins as you can until, the organization took a big swing to bring in Deshaun Watson. And we know what was off the field. All of that stuff has been talked about. We've talked about it here. We've had our deep conversations about that, and I don't want that to be swept under the rug by any means, because that should still that still affects people, and it's going to affect people when this 11-game suspension is done. But I think that we'd also be doing a disservice to Jacoby Brissett and this team, the leaders on this team, if we didn't talk about what they're able to do through some of the adversity that they've gone through or had to and been put in this season. And Brissett has done exactly what he's supposed to do. Just like the Guardians kind of playing a different game than everybody else, the Browns are kind of playing a different game than everybody else, or what the NFL tells you the game is supposed to be. It's supposed to be those home run hits, those deep balls, the athletes making 50 catches down the sideline for 40, 50-yard gains or for touchdowns, and ending up on You Got Mossed on ESPN NFL Sunday or Sunday NFL Countdown on ESPN. All of those types of things. The Browns are doing old school football. They are running the football, and they are doing what we have asked them to do for so long, especially since having Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They have them on the field at the same time. They use them in different packages, and you're using your best asset. That is Nick Chubb. You're using the second best asset, which is probably Kareem Hunt. Then you've added Amari Cooper, who is one of the best route runners in the NFL, allowing him to get open, running some option routes, getting those key third downs or key plays for Brissett. Njoku, if he can continue to have games like that, even if he doesn't get in the end zone, putting drives together. How does Kansas City do it? How does Patrick Mahomes get to that no-look deep pass to guys in the past like Tyreek Hill or whoever the receivers he's got now, Juju and all of that? He does that with Travis Kelce, and they do that with these little 12, 13,
glad you said that.
12, 13-yard gains. Nothing's open down the field, but somehow Kelce gets open, or, one of the receivers makes a play for Mahomes. Then as that momentum, the energy builds in the drive, then you start to see that flash of Mahomes, and that's where it comes from. These guys, Mahomes, Rodgers, Brady, all of those types of things. All of it is built on, can you sustain a drive? Can you run the football enough, which the Browns want to do? Can they do their bread and butter enough to then open up all that stuff? That's what they have done the first 3 weeks. The defense has not looked like we have needed it to. They have done just enough in 2 of the 3 games to have the Browns at 2-1 and have them in a position to get to 3-1 like everybody expected them to do and said they needed to in the first 4 games. So they are doing what they are supposed to do. Yes, Cade York has missed a couple of kicks, but he's hit on all of his field goals, and that's 3 points instead of just the 1. So special teams, question marks there. Defense, question marks there. But yet it's a whole lot easier to do that. And when guys are told, you get the weekend off and you come back Monday and we'll start looking at our next opponent, those are what good teams do to become great teams. Like little things like that. When you stack wins together in the NFL and you only play once a week, guys want it more. They want that feeling more. They're willing to do more of the work. They're willing to correct the mistakes. They're willing to be more accountable. And should they be that when it's going bad consistently? Sure. But it's just something about being in the NFL locker room after a win and wanting that feeling each and every week, because you're not playing every day like baseball or every other day like basketball. You're not getting a chance to have a few of those and a couple losses in the same week. You only get one win or one loss, sometimes a tie, but most of the time, either one win or one loss in the week. And when that win starts to get its way into that locker room and feeds around the team chemistry, there's just nothing like it. That's why you see some teams have more remarkable years you don't expect them to, because they stack those wins early. And I think that's where the Browns are headed.
And I like that you brought up the Njoku Travis Kelce comparison. Obviously, we're not sitting here saying that Travis Kelce is any way comparable to Njoku. I know, but the style of offense in that game was very reminiscent of that. To where obviously Cooper's an X receiver, so he's going to be lined up on the outside a lot. You're going to get him running streaks. You're going to get him hitting those home run plays. He's also a good possession receiver as well. Kind of reminiscent of Tyreek Hill in the model of the offense that the Browns were really kind of shooting for in that game. So, I mean, Njoku got paid all that money. You need to utilize him. And I think what they did well with Njoku was, if you notice, a lot of times Kelce is running without a guy within 10 yards of him.
Mm-hmm.
They're taking advantage of those soft spots in those defenses and sitting him right down and saying, hey, I need you to go run for 10 yards. I need you to get this first down. And then you can kind of sprinkle in some of those home run plays with him as well, because he's so athletic, like a David Njoku is. So I was really encouraged by that, because I feel as if that's what they needed to start doing with Njoku since they first drafted him. And I think now, a lot of questions were surrounding the wide receiver room. Did they have enough? But now you can kind of start to see Stefanski's game plan with these guys. Obviously, I was taken aback by the good rapport that during training camp covering the team, we were there a lot, me and you, Kev. So we were able to see firsthand the chemistry that Deshaun built with Njoku, was something that I was very excited about coming to this season. I had him on some of my fantasy sleeper boards. First couple of games that didn't really pan out too well. But now they're starting to okay, we need to get Njoku more involved. We have a lot of young wide receivers that haven't proven a lot yet. Donovan Peoples-Jones is a nice piece. But if you look at, if we're going back to the Kansas City Chiefs and the way that offense ran, you look at Tyreek Hill, and then besides that, you had a fill-in here with Sammy Watkins. You had a McCole Hardman. You had guys like that, some speedsters, some young guys that can kind of really come into their own. And I think that that's the recipe that the Browns are really shooting for, or what I saw them shoot for in that game in terms of how they ran their offense. They checked it down when they needed to. They took those short screen passes. They made sure Jacoby got the ball out quick. But those home run plays are still there to be had. And I think that is something that Stefanski is going to continue to try to do, because he knows once he has Deshaun Watson in there, who has a little bit more tools than Jacoby Brissett has, that he's going to make even more out of the situations that he's put in. And this offense is really going to get rumbling, because you have Chubb back there. I mean, if you look at his time in Houston, he never had a running back even near Nick Chubb's talent, or even Kareem Hunt's talent. And now you have both of them in the backfield. And the best part about it is one thing that this offense has that the Kansas City model didn't really have, and they tried to replicate it with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is they got a guy like Kareem out of the backfield who's receiving back. And even Chubb in some instances will get in on that receiving game. And that is something that just makes them so dynamic. It is so fun to think of how this offense is going to to move on during the course of the Sean Watson era. And it's something that you can definitely see how we've replicated some of that offense into our own offense. And I'm glad that you brought up the comparison, because that was my exact thought. Anytime you have a big tight end, obviously your first thought is Kelsey, but the way that some of these other teams use their tight ends is very unlike what the Kansas City Chiefs, and why Travis Kelsey is consistently the number one tight end in fantasy is because he's a reception guy. He's not just a big play guy.
Yeah.
So
and Mark Andrews is that in Baltimore too. Mark Andrews is kind of that in Baltimore too. But when teams utilize the tight end, and what did we hear about Stefanski when he came in at first? It was like, this guy's going to utilize tight ends. He's going to be a good guy for the offense to utilize what they have in the backfield, and that's to run the football. And we're starting to see that. Now there's plenty to work on. We're not saying that this team has found their identity by any means. I think offensively, they know what their identity is already. It's to run the football, but they still need to figure out that identity. When teams are able to stop the run, when better teams are able to stop the run, how are you going to adjust? What is that scheme going to look like to either try to get the running game going or to utilize the passing game? We need to see that kind of adjustment still from Stefanski. The defense, the special teams, they don't have an identity at all still. Joe Woods, credit to him, credit to Stefanski for simplifying everything. But hey, it's 1 week at a time. They'll come back. They have 3-1 in front of them. They're going to have to go do that. They have to beat the Atlanta Falcons and be 3-1 after the first 4 weeks.
Absolutely.
And you stack a win after win, then, now guys start playing maybe above what their capability levels are. That's why you see teams that aren't expected to do much 1 year in football have remarkable years, because they have that early success and they get through some of those early trials and tribulations of the early part of the season.